Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ed Edelson. I'm the first selectman of Southbury, and I want to welcome you to this special ceremonial bill signing by Governor Dal Malloy. Governor Malloy, we are honored that you could be with us today. And before you come forward to say a few remarks, I'd like to recognize a couple of special people here today, some who will be speaking and some who are just here to attend on this special day. I want to shout out to my good friend and co-first selectman, Barbara Henry from Roxbury, who also has a part of these beautiful farmlands are in Roxbury also. I also want to call out Tom Kreider from the Southbury Land Trust. Tom has been by my side throughout this whole process and giving me lots of very important advice. Also recognize Rob Kane, our state senator, is here. And a little bit later I'll be introducing our three other people who will be making some remarks. Our Representative Arthur O'Neill, Commissioners Resvitsky and Macy. So it's very hot, so we're going to try to move through this quickly, but I would like to share with you that my story on the farmlands is that the first time I had a conversation with the governor about this was back in 2006 when he called me up and he said, what is it that's really important to the people of Southbury, different from the general issues that affect the whole state? And the first thing I thought about was, well, why is he calling me? And the second is I thought of what would my dear friend Mark Taylor say if he was presented with that question. And what I knew Mark would say is, got to preserve the farmlands at the Southbury Training School. And that's what I said to the governor, and he said to me he's very committed to open space, and he would do everything he could to make sure these farmlands were preserved. Now, I have to tell you, I lived in Stamford, where he was the mayor, back in 1970, and I thought he's got to be kidding, because I didn't remember any open space in Stamford when I lived there in 1970. But I did a little research, and I found out that he had done amazing things as mayor to bring open space back to, or to preserve it in Stamford. Now when we met up again in 2011, he still remembered his commitment, and he said he looked forward to having a partner in Southbury that he could work with to finally preserve these farmlands the way we've been talking about for several decades. And within days of my election, I was invited to a meeting here at the Southbury Training School with the principal agencies to pave the strategy for what needed to be done. And from the beginning, and throughout the whole process, the whole executive branch in Hartford has made sure that I was involved and that the town's interests were always kept top of mind. So today we're here to celebrate our collaborative success after decades of talking. My only sadness is that Dr. Taylor is no longer with us to celebrate this moment. And so now it is my distinct pleasure to ask Governor Malloy to share with us a few remarks about the farmlands.
All of you, I apologize about falling behind in schedule, and I know it was warm, so a heartfelt apology for keeping you waiting. However, I think you've been waiting for a long time, so we just have to put it in context with respect to what we're doing today. I want to thank the state senator, representative, for being here and their leadership played in this effort. I want to thank my two commissioners. You know, I frequently talk about how we're trying to have a different administration, and frequently that language revolves around breaking down silos, but I'm not sure I should be doing that on farmland. Suffices to say that OPM and the two agencies that are represented here really did work together to bring this day about. And my friend Ed, whose leadership I appreciate so much, and who has advocated for getting this done, as well as other things around the school. I really want to thank you. I want to congratulate you, Ed. You got it done, and and you should be very proud of what you've accomplished. The agricultural land on this property is a beautiful gem in our state that we should preserve forever as farmland. The scenic area is a unique treasure with an ability to produce any number of Connecticut-grown products. It is necessary that we act now to preserve this farmland, and that's exactly what this legislation does. Over the last few years, I've spoken with a number of the Southbury residents who want to see this land remain pristine and to have it provide environmental benefits into the future. This bill allows DDS to focus specifically on their mission of assisting individuals in the service system and transfers the responsibility of this land to the Department of Agriculture, which can better preserve the mission of this farmland. The residents of Southbury have had a very positive relationship with the state of Connecticut and the Southbury Training School since it was founded in the 1930s. And to this day, that working relationship between the state and the town continues, as evidenced by all the people who join us here today in this celebration. As I said, the First Selectman has been a strong advocate on behalf of this land. I've personally spoken with Ed on any number of occasions. In fact, I don't think I've spoken to Ed in the last 3 years on any occasion in which we didn't talk about this farmland. He's been very passionate about it. These meetings have been responsible for getting us to where we are today, and I thank him for his time and attention to this topic. I also want to specifically thank Representative Art O'Neill, who has passionately led the legislation through the General Assembly, and I very much appreciate that hard work. Earlier this spring, I should also tell you, I formed a special state-local task force to develop a comprehensive plan on the future use of the campus and how to maintain the buildings and grounds as it continues to be the home of residents. Working cooperatively with all parties involved, the state, the town of Southbury, and representatives from the Southbury Training School, I anticipate that this task force will present us with recommendations on how we can best move forward with the next steps on the property. Let me break from my comment to speak in personal terms about the failures of the state of Connecticut to have handled properly the transfer back to communities of properties that the state has used over the years, whether they were other schools or prisons or other institutions that got turned back. Quite frankly, I don't think the state did a very good job. And I have pledged to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes that were made in other communities here in Southbury, just as I'm attempting to undo some of the damage that's been done in some of those communities that have been adversely impacted in the past, including with brownfield remediation grants and other forms of funding to undo the burdens that we presented many communities with. I truly believe that this planning process and its anticipated report on January 30th is an important move forward on top of the one that we take today. So I can assure all of the residents of this community in Roxbury that I will do everything in my power to make sure that the state of Connecticut does a better job by you than it has done by other communities in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. You can have a seat.
No,
There's some water over there.
I'm catching the wind here.
All right.
You're not getting me away.
All right. We need the breeze. Well, again, thank you for your commitment and your leadership on this legislative achievement. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Terry Macy, the Commissioner of the Department of Developmental Services, and the agency that, for all those of you who don't know, is responsible for the operation of the Southbury Training School.
Thank you, Ed. So this is a very special moment in Connecticut history, as we are here today to witness the transfer of nearly 800 acres of farmland from the Department of Developmental Services to the Department of Agriculture through the signing of Public Act 13-90, an act concerning the preservation of farmland at the Southbury Training School. There was a time when institutions like Southbury Training School, with large self-sustaining farms, dotted the landscape throughout the country. Today, this is no longer the case, leaving states with important decisions regarding the best use of these types of land. Connecticut has made a great decision by transferring the stewardship of this outstanding property to a state agency that is best suited to promote its preservation and conservation. I'd like to thank Governor Malloy for his leadership in this legislation, as well as Commissioner Levitsky and his staff, Representative O'Neill, and others who worked tirelessly over the last several months to make this legislation possible. Thank you very much.
Once again, Commissioner Macy, thank you for your forward-thinking approach to these prime farmlands. Now, a critical role in making sure these farmlands are effectively utilized will be played by the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I might add, the former First Selectman of the town of Ashford, Steve Rositsky, and it's my pleasure to invite him forward to say a few words.
Good afternoon. This is a remarkable day, and as I have said before, this is the crown jewel of farmland properties that the state of Connecticut has stewardship of. And we have worked with our partners over time to try to get to this place, but it took the stars aligning to make this happen. Working with our partners at the Southbury Land Trust, the advocates of the Working Lands Alliance, Representative O'Neill, the town of Southbury, and our farmer here who has been a steward on this land, Ed Platt. We worked to make this happen, but we wouldn't be here today if we didn't have the leadership of Governor Malloy. And having the stars align the way they have, and having leadership in the General Assembly, and having the superior leadership of our governor, this day is becoming a reality. And after the transfer of this property from the Department of Developmental Services to the Department of Agriculture, there will be a conservation easement placed over the land here to remain in agricultural production into the future. Prior to me becoming Commissioner of Agriculture, I was a property agent at the State Department of Agriculture. And I've got to tell you, it was very difficult working with the former Department of Mental Retardation, now DDS. And I want to especially thank Commissioner Macy for having an open mind and an open heart to work with us to make this all happen. So thank you all very much. This is a wonderful day.
Well, I just wanted to make a point with regard to what Steve said. We've already started talking with the Department of Agriculture about what happens next. Legislation is important, as we used to say in mathematics. It's a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient condition. We've got a lot of work to do here in terms of getting farmers back on the land and encouraging the kind of diversity of farming that I know Steve and his staff wants. And so we've already talking about creating a state and local oversight or what did I say? Advisory committee to help steer that forward, give people information locally about how they can get involved in farming. And I really hope we can bring farming back as one of the economic legs of this community the way it used to be. This can be the starting point for a lot of that rejuvenation. And I see some people here from the food industry, and that just all ties together with what we do from an economic basis of having our locally grown produce, our great markets and restaurants to use that. And we might come back and talk about that in a little while. But anyway, thank you, Steve, and I look forward to working with you. Now, when I first became First Selectman, the first thing I did was, well, one of the first things was had a lunch with Representative O'Neill, Senator Kane, and Representative Labriola, our three congressmen, or our three representatives, to talk about how we could work together going forward, because we all knew that this was something we all wanted to see happen. And I really appreciated their support throughout this legislative session. Sometimes I have no clue what goes on up in Hartford. It's a complete mysterious black box for me, but I appreciate the fact that they were up there and made things happen. So I would like to ask Representative O'Neill, who's been working on this for, well, he'll tell you. And we appreciate all of his perseverance on this. Arthur?
I guarantee you this is 2 minutes. For those who've heard my speeches on the floor of the House. President Kennedy once remarked that victory has 1,000 fathers, looking at all the beaming faces out here today, it is obvious that we are here to celebrate a victory. My commitment to protecting Southbury Training School Farm and promoting agricultural activities on it go back to my first term in the legislature in 1988, when I proposed legislation to preserve this farmland. My commitment to protecting Southbury Training School Farm has been a matter of persistence. And after 5 years, Governor Weicker finally signed earlier legislation that committed the state to some type of preservation of the land, that it was going to remain agricultural. Years later, the legislature passed a bill which I co-sponsored, creating a task force to study the future uses of all of the farms owned by the state of Connecticut. Among the members of that task force were Tom Kreider and Steve Ravitsky. Their report proposed that those farms owned by the state should be preserved and protected through the use of third-party easements to nonprofit groups committed to land preservation and promoting agriculture. During the next legislative session, I proposed legislation to enact those recommendations, and I proposed it in each session afterwards, 2011, 2012, and finally this year it passed. Thank you, Governor Malloy, and for the administration for supporting it. Special mention goes to now Agriculture Commissioner Steve Ravitsky, and his assistant George Scrivda, who could not be with us today. He's busy taking applications for farm loss grants. And to Chris Smith of the Governor's Office, who is here somewhere, I saw him earlier, and to DDS Commissioner Macy, and to Christine Leo, your assistant, who's worked hard with me over the years on this project. And thank you to Tom Kreider and Ed Edelson for your support, and to Selectman Chad Landman and First Selectman Barbara Henry of Roxbury, who personally testified in support of this legislation. And I have a special thanks for John Erickson. I don't think I see John in the audience, but he's one of the people who came up and personally testified, spent hours waiting so that he could testify on the bill, and who has worked so hard for so many years to shepherd land into the land trust and to preserve it. It's always been a pleasure working with John. And also thank you to the people of the town of Southbury for your unwavering support throughout the years. This victory could not have been achieved without you. Thank you.
With that, I'm very inexperienced in this, but I think we're going to have our bill signing here. And I think actually, Governor, while you're getting ready to do that, there is a presentation for you. As you might know, the Southbury Training School produces on the order of about 600 eggs a day that are used in our local restaurants, our bakeries, and our stores. And so I believe some of the residents here would like to present you with some eggs. Well, you don't have to get up, but keep signing. We want you to sign. First things first.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a lot of eggs.
Scramble.
I have another presentation.
A t-shirt from Southbury Land Trust.
Hey. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Oh, excellent. Excellent. This is great. Give these away. Absolutely.
Nice touch up the blue flowers. Did you do that this year?
finally, I should have said thank you all for coming out. I didn't expect this many people, but I think it's another demonstration of how much the people of Southbury appreciate the farmlands as well as the training school in general.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
I'll take it. Walter, how are you? Dan Malloy. Nice to meet you. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi. That's Alan. This is Johnny. How are you? Nice to see you, Johnny. Thank you. Hi. Nice to meet you. Dan Malloy. Thank you very much. Thanks.